What does it mean that creativity is a choice? Well, first thing, have you ever been creative once in your life? Have you ever solved an interesting problem, told a funny joke, said something to somebody else that needed to be said? I've never met anyone who said no. Everyone has been creative at least once. So what does it mean to be creative more than once? It means that you have to extend yourself with empathy to the person you are seeking to serve, to the person who the work is for. And you have to extend yourself not just through space, but through time into the future, announcing something that might or might not work. You don't know yet. That's what makes it creative. If you exert the emotional labor to do those two things, sometimes you will have a successful creative outcome. That's a choice. So the people who say, I don't have any questions. Well, no, it's impossible you don't have any questions. What you're actually saying is, I don't care enough to ask a question that might embarrass me. That's what you're actually saying. And that's a euphemism for, I don't want to make the choice to be creative. When we say, I am talking to myself, nobody thinks that's a weird thing to say. Who is I and who is yourself? Why does it feel so normal to have two voices in our head? Because we all do. One voice is hyperliterate and verbal and vocal and a critic. It is responsible for getting us to fit in all the way. The other voice, not that good at being verbal, that self is the one that wants to make things better, that's curious, that's inquisitive, that might color outside the lines. And it's the first voice that is mostly in control. And so when we look at great shortcuts and hacks like morning pages, they exist to bypass the first voice. That so many of the things that creative people do as part of their practice exist to make the first voice, the monkey mind, be a little calmer so that the other voice can be trusted enough to speak up. That doesn't mean it will always work. And it doesn't mean we should let that voice do whatever it wants to, but it should at least be allowed to present its agenda so that our more cognition-focused brain can make a decision. There are very few amateur surgeons, right? You want a professional surgeon. You want the surgeon to show up and do her work beautifully, even if she's in a bad mood. And you want her to keep going to continuing education classes to be understanding the state of the art, not because they are fascinated by how the knee works, but because they said to you, I'm really good at knee surgery and I will take care of you. A professional makes a promise and then keeps the promise, whether or not they feel like it. Amateurs get to be authentic, whatever that means. Amateurs show up when they want to and make what they want to make. I love being an amateur at some things. Don't sell your hobbies. Do your hobbies for you. But if you're going to be a pro, it means you need to understand the state of the art. It means you need to raise the bar. You need to understand who it's for and what's it for, what change do you seek to make. There's a whole bunch of obligations that go with being a professional that put you on the hook. And for years, I've had uniforms at work. I don't usually wear them in public. They change from time to time. At the beginning, it was a lab coat. Lately, I've just been trying the Japanese volunteer fireman hoppy coat. Because when you put on the uniform, you've just sent yourself a message. Do your work at your workspace. Do it at the appointed hours. Never, ever miss a deadline. Never, ever go over budget. Because professionals don't miss deadlines, don't throw tantrums, and don't go over budget. And every once in a while, a creative breaks through because they're doing their hobby for money. And they do those things, they miss their deadline, blah, 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 and people applaud them. And then eventually they fade away because the industries we work in, they want to work with professionals. Well, there's the work, and then there's work, the verb. For me, the work is what the professional said they would do. And there are definitely times that the permission marketing, the phrase that enabled me to be an author, came to me in the shower. Right? But it didn't come to me in the shower accidentally. It came to me in the shower with intent. I went into the shower and I was getting close to the self-appointed deadline. And I said, I'm going to stay in the shower until I have a name for this thing we do here, even if the water gets cold. And we only had a 40-gallon hot water tank at the time. So I knew I didn't have a lot of time. I was in there to do work. And I think as we get more and more privileged, where our work looks so much more like what people used to think of as hobbies, we can get confused by the fact that our work is a hobby. It's not. And treating it like our work, I think, helps us make it better.